Prairie Yard and Garden is a production of the University of Minnesota Morris in cooperation with Pioneer Public Television. Funding for Prairie Yard and Garden is provided in part by Heartland Motor Company, providing service for over 30 years in the heart of truck country. Heartland Motor Company, we have your best interest at heart. Farmers Mutual Telephone Company and Federated Telephone Cooperative, proud to be powering ASERA. Mark and Margaret Yackel Jolene, in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHill.org.
I think at one time or another we have all heard or sung the beautiful song, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." I'm host Mary Holm, and come along as Prairie Yard and Garden visits a special place that could use this song as its theme. We'll visit a garden dedicated to peace on earth between two great nations. Growing up on our farm, all of our cars had license plates that said North Dakota Peace Garden State. In 8th grade state history class, I learned about the International Peace Garden mentioned on those license plates. Unfortunately, when you have dairy cows on the farm, you don't get away to do much traveling and sightseeing. So today it is very exciting for me and all our Prairie Yard and Garden viewers to go on a tour of the International Peace Garden with Gary Enns. Welcome, Gary.
Well, and welcome to you.
When was the Peace Garden established?
The dream of an International Peace Garden actually came about in the late 20s. There were various horticultural and gardening kinds of events going on in New York City and in Boston and in Toronto. And the folks who got together at these events thought, wouldn't it be great, given that we've had the war to end all wars, to establish a representative garden, an international peace garden on the 49th parallel to demonstrate that we Canadians and we Americans have been at peace for almost 200 years. And if you place it in a context, that was of course before the stock market crash in 1929, when some of that optimism sort of vanished, and then of course along came the Depression. But prior to that, in 1932, was when the International Peace Garden was formally launched and opened. So the official opening was on July the 14th, 1932, and where we're standing, of course, it looked very different then than it does now, but the cairn that is at the gate was unveiled on July 14th, 1932, and news reports say there were anywhere from 50 to 70,000 people here.
How did they pick here?
A couple of things were driving them. They were looking for a spot that was pretty central to North America. And as you know, Rugby has that big sign that says, "We are the center of the continent of North America." Well, we're pretty close to that. So that was a major ingredient. And my understanding is that Mr. Moore, Henry Moore, who was the lead founding director for the International Peace Garden, flew across and around this area to take a look at, just to see where the landscape might be appropriate for such a garden, and he picked this spot. I wished he'd gotten out of the plane and maybe checked to see what the soils were like, and did a little bit of research to determine what kind of weather patterns there are here, because the location certainly has its challenges. That said, being at the center, being at the heart of the Turtle Mountains, in the heart of the continent, I think does have some significance, and I think it is a magical spot.
How big is the International Peace Garden?
The garden in total encompasses some 2,390 acres. Most of that, of course, is in prairie savanna, is aspen and bur oak and other hardy species like that. The formal garden itself takes up about 25 acres of that.
What would you say are the main attractions in the Peace Garden? When people come, what are the things or the attractions that they enjoy the most that you can tell?
The formal garden is the main attraction. Right now we're standing in the sunken garden, as it's called, and all of our perennials here with their different flowering cycles certainly draws people in as well. So the garden itself continues to be the centerpiece, as it should be. We do have a variety of monuments within the formal garden as well, and that also draws people here. The Promise of Peace on the eastern edge of the formal garden, and it's situated in that fountain there. And it's a centerpiece that was initially dedicated back in 1975 to represent peace. But the original sculpture did not stand the test of time very well. It basically crumbled really quickly. So we now have a statue, a sculpture that is called A Promise of Peace, and it has two upheld hands like this, releasing a dove. The 911 memorial is 10 girders from the trade centers, and they look like they've been placed there haphazardly, but that was the intent of the design. The design was to show the aftermath of that terrible tragedy on September the 11th.
And then there's also a Peace Chapel here at the gardens too, right?
Yes, there's a Peace Chapel that is situated on the west end of the garden. If you haven't taken a walk all the way to the end of the formal garden, you might miss it because it is pushed into the hillside that is there, and it's also right behind the Peace Tower. That is the monument that's been in the news so much in the last little while. It's 120 feet high, and so we had to, in fact, install a fence around it to keep people from going underneath it because there was a safety hazard. And we thought initially that what we would do is repair it, and brought in an engineering firm to do a study to see what it would take. And essentially the doctor's prognosis was not good. Basically, the testing of the structure determined that the crumbling of the concrete was throughout, that it was going to be disintegrating all on its own. It would be coming down on its own. Even its foundation was beginning to crumble, and that it would only be a matter of time and it wouldn't be safe at all to be anywhere near it. So we're taking it down, but we've already conducted an ideas competition with inviting more than 24 architects and landscape architects to submit ideas as to what we might replace it with. We're looking for something that will be as durable as the sculpture, the Promise of Peace that we put in at the other end of the garden.
Are the Peace Gardens open year-round?
Yes, that is one of our best kept secrets. People assume it's a garden, flowers, trees, they bloom in spring, summer, fall, and then nothing, right? But we have a cactus collection, and the cactus collection needs looking after and tending to around the clock, around the year. We are gradually shifting to a more year-round operation, yes. The roadway is ideal for cyclists, for joggers, for rollerbladers, skateboarders, and we have a fair number of all of those through the summer months. We don't have any groomed trails in terms of cross-country skiing, but the gentle undulating hills here are ideal for cross-country skiing, and we do encourage people to come in and enjoy this place in winter.
And you have other activities that go on here too, I believe, because I saw a sign as we drove up that said International Music Camp.
Oh, yes.
What is that all about?
Well, that's been here since 1956. It got started in 1956 by Dr. Merton Utgard. He felt a summer camp would be a great way to encourage young people to become more seriously interested in music, to make sure that they would actually then come and become one of his students. And he remembered he was trying to figure out where he could perhaps locate a camp such as that, and he remembered that when he was here to help unveil the cairn in 1932, that at that time they had stayed in some bunkhouses here at the International Peace Garden, and he knew that there was this historic lodge here that would probably be a fairly good venue for a camp kind of a performance space. And that's how it started. We had the facilities, he took advantage of it, and it's just grown and grown and grown. We have grade 6 to adult. There are in fact some adult camps as well. So if you wanted to come and just sort of see how your voice is doing, or if you'd played clarinet when you were in high school and you'd like to maybe try it again, the camp's here for you.
Thank you so very much for letting us come and enjoy the beautiful Peace Garden.
Well, and thank you for coming. We love to have visitors from anywhere in this continent and beyond, and we do have a fair number of visitors who are beginning to seek us out from Europe and Asia. So it's interesting to see when they get here. The response we get from them is just tremendous. And despite some of our challenges here, I think we are beginning to identify which mix of which flowers, plants, perennials, shrubs, trees works the best. So each year will be a slightly different show, and actually each week is almost a different show. So come often. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
I have a question. I'm looking at getting some height in the containers around my yard. What recommendations do you have?
There's many tropicals that work well and that you can use in your containers, and cannas is one of them. And there's many varieties that come in shades of red, yellows, oranges, and some of them have very interesting foliages like Tropicana and Pretoria. Also, large elephant ears work very nicely and give you height. There's one called Maui Gold, which is right behind me, and there's Ruffles, and there's Diamond Head, which is also has a purple sheen to the foliage, and it's very large and beautiful and would contrast well with many different plants. Another annual or tropical light plant would be the castor oil bean. It's a very poisonous plant, but it started from a seed and it grows very quickly into a large, beautiful plant, and the leaves are showy, and there's many varieties of foliage, green or burgundy with red seed heads or pink seed heads, and also purple foliage. So these work very nicely in large containers and give you height in your beds.
Ask the Arboretum Experts has been brought to you by the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum in Chanhassen, dedicated to enriching lives through the appreciation and knowledge of plants.
I'm here with Connie Lagerquist, and Connie, tell us what you do here at the International Peace Garden.
Well, I'm one of the horticulturists here on staff at the garden, and it's my job to basically take care of all of the annual flowers, some of the perennial flowers, and some of the trees and shrubs that are involved. But I do all of my work in the formal area, which is anything coming in when you first come in the front entrance at the gate, down to the wrought iron gates, which will lead you into the sunken garden area, and anything on the other side of the sunken garden area to where the towers and the chapel. And that's where my staff, basically, we do all the planting, we do all the weeding, and taking care of general maintenance.
How many flowers do you grow each year for the Peace Garden?
This year, we've opened up some new flower areas. This year it was about 100,000.
Do you grow the same varieties from year to year?
No, I try not to. Anymore, I mean, the horticultural industry is basically exploding out there, and of all the research and of all the new varieties and the new plant types that are coming out, I'd like to stay ahead of that. A lot of the new varieties that that we do see in either magazines or we go to workshops and whatever to see what is new in the industry. I like to have that here, so anybody coming to the International Peace Garden will not only get a fresh look at what is new out there, but how can they utilize it in their own flower space at home. So that's what I like to do. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, we still fall back on, you know, some of the marigolds and the geraniums, petunias, and that type of thing, if we can, you know, to bring in that color, that basic color that's always been a good standby, and introduce us to the new line of stuff that we do put in the ground.
Are there any gardens that you have the same from year to year?
The only two that we will always have the same will be the flags, and you can see those off here to the right. Of course, the flags, you know, that we do in flowers aren't going to change, because neither country wants to change their design. So we do those the same. It doesn't mean we don't change the flowers, the different types of flowers that we use in there, but the colors and the design there will always stay the same. But the other flowers, the other flower beds that we do have will always be different.
Then do you grow the flowers that you use here from seed or from cuttings, or both?
Both. Some of the flowers that we do use, of course, we are home to the All-American selections as well. So we do get all that free seed into, you know, and we have a trial garden here as well that we do that with. So I do all that from seed. Some of the flowers that I know that I would like to try and use within my flower designs and that I can't get in as plugs, I will grow those from seed. Otherwise, a lot of the varieties and stuff I want to use to make sure that I do get the germination that I want and the amount that I really need without losing any, then I'll bring those in as plugs. But I usually bring them in small enough where we bring them into the greenhouse, we transplant them from the trays that they come into cell packs, and then the cell packs go on the bench, we grow them out, and then from there they go into the ground, and it's just a one-time process.
How early do you start most of the plants that you do plant outside then?
Well, some of the All-American selections, you know, I'll use that for an example right away, that I start the middle of January with those, because some of that seed needs to go in the middle of January in order to get full production. You know, by the time 1st of June rolls around, I want that ready to be in bloom when I put it in the ground.
How long is your growing season here?
On a good year, probably 3 months.
Okay, because we are right on the U.S.-Canadian border, and so you're shorter than a lot of the rest of us.
In most cases, I don't dare put anything in the ground till the 1st of June. And this year, you know, we put it in, we even cheated a little bit. Right after Memorial Day this year, I put things in the ground, so we were basically a week ahead of schedule. Then the rains basically started, and with the rains and the coolness of the weather, everything has been just sitting still. So now we've had some adequate days of sunshine. So within this last week, the flowers now are starting to actually, the buds that have been sitting there at this time are now really opening up and really starting to pay attention and do what they're meant to do.
And how big of a staff do you have to do all of the work, the planting out and the maintenance that's needed?
Normally, I like to have anywhere from 12 to 14, whether they be university or high school kids. This year, you know, been hard to get staff, so we are very, very understaffed. So on a good day here this year, I've had 6. The 6 that I do have worked really hard, and you know, there's some days that I'm not well appreciated, but you know, I try to let them know that I do appreciate what they're doing, and those that do come, they do a good job.
How in the world do you control the weeds on such a huge area?
Well, I know in the sunken garden, they like to use a lot of mulch. Where I'm at, a lot of the soil, I mean, we live in, we call it Turtle Mountain gumbo. So we bring in a lot of amendments to our soil. So if that soil isn't tilled first thing in the spring, and then again the last thing in the fall, we're in dire trouble, because we end up with that hard pan under there, and it's really, really hard to get anything to grow in that. We can't, because my kids get a trowel. They're issued a small little garden trowel in the spring of the year, and that's what they use. They use that for planting, they use it for weeding, and they use it for everything that they do. So in order to get that trowel in the ground, we have to have some soil that's workable. So I don't use a lot of mulch, if any, in the areas that I'm at, just because we need to do that tilling. And once I get the flowers in there, if I use a lot of mulch in there, it's hard to get in there to weed all that, because my flowers have to be a lot closer together, and to be able to, you know, to show that the outline that I'm looking for.
Do you fertilize throughout the season?
Actually, I don't. Once they're in the ground, they get. We do a broadcast of slow release. Okay. So, and that's basically, most of the time it's triple 14. It's a slow release. I do a broadcast of that. But otherwise, before they get to the ground, my plants are fertilized every time they're watered in the greenhouse. So up until that time that they do come out and actually hit the soil, they are ready to go. Once the root system is intact, the flowers I like to have them in bloom. And so once they hit the soil, we hit it running, so to speak, and then so we can do that performance that everybody's looking for when they first come in the grounds, because they want that instant color right away.
And then how do you deadhead everything, or how do you keep up with that?
It's hard to keep up with, but basically it's all by hand. You know, if I have one of the girls or even one of the guys that are on staff that maybe are caught up with an area that they're in, they get a small little hand clipper, and okay, you've got an hour left at the end of the day. This is one area that I would like to, we need to trim it out. So once they learn how to do that too, I mean, it's a day that they're not down on their knees in the soil and pulling weeds. They're able to just something a little bit different. But basically we do everything by hand.
I want to ask about the floral clock. How tall can the flowers be limited to for that floral clock?
Well, right now we can do them anywhere from 16 to probably 24 inches. Years ago, the clock, the face of the clock is new to us since 2005. When we had the older version of the clock there, the hands were a lot lower to the soil. So then we were limited to even from say 12 to 14 inches, no more. Because then when the hands kept going around, they kept hitting the tops of the flowers. Well, now with the new face on there, it's a little bit higher up, so I'm given a little more leadway as to what I can use for colors.
How do you get in there and weed and take care of everything too, with the clock, with the arms going around all the time?
Very carefully.
Okay, you kind of got to time your work in there.
And usually one of the staff I get them up there, and we come in from one side, then they come in from the other side. So they kind of use the four different directions to come into. So they kind of wait until the hands are up and down or sideways, or so just so they can basically kind of get in there. And you kind of got to get in there on your belly, especially from the top. You got to hang it down from the top. So, and if they choose not to do it, well, then I have to kind of come in and do the best I can, trying to come in from whatever angle.
With this big area, do you have trouble with critters?
Right now, my biggest problems with anything are the deer. Down here in the sunken garden, that's one of the reasons why we have the wrought iron fence. You know, that's why the gates are the way they are. So we can have things in here that we can't have outside of the sunken garden just because the deer wouldn't leave them alone. Hostas, I have a few hostas in the formal area as well. And come the other morning, and I mean, they were huge. They were just absolutely gorgeous. Come the other morning, and they left me with 3 blooms on each plant, and they trimmed those hostas off to nothing. So that's all I had left of the hostas. So, you know, in certain areas, and it all depends on what they choose to want to browse.
Do you use any repellent or anything else to try to keep them away?
I used to. I used to work with a company that made Hinder, okay. Which worked very well. But now I don't use anything. A lot of what we do, you know, the products out there anymore are all egg-based, and they smell terrible. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to put that egg-based on there and then expect my staff to get in right behind it and do some weeding, because, you know, the residue and stuff that's left on the leaves smells pretty bad.
And besides that, you have so many visitors here too that is really a detriment too.
And we've used, you know, products in the past that are blood meal. Mm-hmm. And that too, if you leave a residue on there, and especially when the sun shines, I mean, that leaves off an awful odor as well. So the Hinder that I had used was more of a coyote urine. So that didn't leave a residue, and it was very safe to use. So once you picked your produce and took it in and washed it, everything was safe to eat. Okay. So, but anyway, I haven't used that now for a while. So up to now, and the deer population has gone down somewhat. So now it's just kind of luck of the day.
For the people that are out watching, what do you recommend as the go-to flowers that do the best and that provide you the best show and just plain do really good for you here?
Well, I'll use this year for an example, and I'll go right back to the marigolds. Marigolds this year have just been outstanding. It must be the variety that I've chosen. They've just been outstanding. Rudbeckia in here is another one that will do a beautiful show. Just that the weather hasn't, you know, now that we got the sunshine, the Rudbeckia is all coming full bloom, and that will be the last flower down once we get frost. Blue salvia is another one that's outstanding. Zinnias will work beautifully. I know a lot of people have had problems with zinnias this year because of fungus and mold issues. But as far as myself, it's just been the rain and the blossoms. So now we take the old blossoms off, and I think we're going to be just fine. You know, everything has got a lot of new growth coming to it, and so, you know, some of the old standbys are always good. My petunias this year, I'm sure everybody else maybe has had different luck, but my petunias this year haven't performed half as well as they have in the past. Okay. So, depends on the variety.
And depends on the season.
Exactly, because I know with all the new varieties of everything that have been posted, whether, you know, at trade shows or, you know, at conventions and everything that we've listened to and that I've really wanted to try and bring into the garden this year, you know, a lot of them just haven't performed the way that I thought they would. So this has been a real poor year for celosia. For whatever reason, we've got celosia in the tail of the peacock, and that has performed well, the new look celosia. But I've also tried the dragon's breath, the brand new one out. That didn't do a thing. Absolutely sat there. It didn't move.
And new look is an older variety.
It is, and it is performing beautifully up there, because you'll see that as you go along. But like I say, the dragon's breath, we took that out. We had to take it out and replace it because it just didn't do anything. Okay. So, but I mean, it could have been just the season. So I was really kind of anxious to try that one, for example, because it was, you know, so well talked about. So, you know, a lot of times the standbys will do great, and then we just kind of added a few new varieties to kind of accent that. So, you know, like I said before, I'm a farmer's daughter, so I'm looking forward to next year too. So,
well, thank you so much for taking the time and telling us about the gardens and the plants that you have, that you take care of. So just thank you for your time and for all of the information.
Well, you're certainly welcome. It's been my pleasure. So anybody out there too that hasn't had a chance to come to the garden yet, we've still got a lot of time left and a lot of things that are just either now coming into bloom or things that have been blooming for the season. So I don't think you're going to be disappointed one way or another. So please come out and enjoy the day with us and see what we have here to offer for you.
Thank you again.
Funding for Prairie Yard and Garden is provided in part by Heartland Motor Company, providing service for over 30 years in the heart of truck country. Heartland Motor Company, we have your best interest at heart. Farmers Mutual Telephone Company and Federated Telephone Cooperative, proud to be powering ASERA. Mark and Margaret Yackel Jolene, in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHill.org.